Hello, everyone, and thank you for being here tonight. My name is John Darnell, and I'm one of the Neighborhood Empowerment Advocates from the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment. We oversee the Neighborhood Council system, and we're proud to be the largest and most dynamic civic engagement system in the entire country. Over 1,800 board members serve this city and 99 neighborhood councils, and we're proud to promote civic engagement wherever and whenever we can with unique events like this. We believe that everyone, no matter who they are, has a voice, and you too can run for office and serve your community. This event is something we really look forward to because we believe that neighborhood council members are very talented and many are looking to do more. This area of the city is covered by the Mid-City West Community Council, which has approximately 60,000 residents. Thank you, Mid-City West Community Council, for co-sponsoring tonight's event, and we thank you for your service. While this event is about things beyond neighborhood councils, we do have information about the upcoming neighborhood council elections on the table in the back if you're interested, and also in the swag in the bag that we had provided to you. So right now, I'd like to introduce Amy Goldenberg. She serves on the ad hoc committee for the Mid-City West Community Council for the ad hoc elections committee. I'd like to ask her to come up. She's going to speak for about a minute about Mid-City West and the upcoming election that they have.
Hi, thanks for coming tonight. I just want to, this is the page, oh, I have to, okay. This is the page that you want to look for if you are thinking about running for on the board of any neighborhood council in Los Angeles. But I want to speak specifically about Mid-City West. The elections are happening this year up through June, but right now, if you live within the boundaries of Mid-City West, the information about our particular council is that the deadline for filing to be a candidate for the board is March 19th. So you have until March 19th at 5 o'clock to file. And ways that you can find out more information about it is to go to the Empower LA website. EmpowerLA.org, you'll see a video about what neighborhood councils are. It'll give you information on filing, but also this sheet of paper gives you a lot of the information and where to go to do that. But some dates that you should be aware of our council's elections are on June 2nd. So if you file to become a candidate, you have through that time to get out the word that you're running, and we're going to have 2 events leading up to that election on June 2nd. If you want to find out more about Mid-City West Community Council, I would suggest that you like our Facebook page, Mid-City West Community Council. You can also go to our website, midcitywest.org, and get more information about what we do and what we're about. And also, if you want to find out a little bit more about us, come to our next board meeting. We meet the second Tuesday of every month, and our next board meeting is March 12th. So if you come, it's in this room, and you could also learn real specifics about who we are and what we do. And so that's just the information. So look for this page in your swag. Thank you.
Thank you. And also a friendly reminder in your packet, I believe there's a list of when all the neighborhood council election dates are, and they're coming up. The first one starts March 31st. We do this workshop to provide guidance for next steps for neighborhood council members, but also members of the public. As you know, we will discuss how to run for higher office, being on a city commission, and how to find a city job. I want to introduce a few of my colleagues that have put this event together. This event, with all its valuable information, would not be possible without them. Mike Fong, who's sitting in the back here. Mario Hernandez, he's not in the room, he's actually helping outside right now. But we have Aaron Abedian and Savak Paramazian, Dianthos Cowell, and Karen Hernandez. Let's give all our staff a wonderful round of applause. And I also want to let you know this event is being video recorded by my colleague Aaron. So we save the recordings and place them on their YouTube channel so that folks that maybe unfortunately couldn't attend the event tonight because maybe they had a board meeting or something they had to do, can see this great information as well. And every year we record it and we put it on our YouTube channel, so you can always reference that yourself. And our YouTube channel is called Empower LA. Next, I want to give a special thank you to the National Council of Jewish Women Los Angeles for hosting this event. Their organization does amazing work for this community as well as throughout the city of Los Angeles. They're a grassroots organization of volunteers that has been around over 100 years, and also volunteers and advocates that strives for social justice by improving the quality of life for women, children, families, and by safeguarding individual rights and freedoms. And thank you to Maya Paley, their Director of Advocacy and Community Engagement, for working directly with us to plan this event. Maya has been with the NCJW for many years and has been a leader in advocating for human rights throughout our city. The City of Los Angeles is grateful to partner with such an amazing advocate in Maya and her organization. Maya would like to come up and say a few words about her organization, and also she's also a former Neighborhood Council board member as well. So, come on over, Maya.
Thank you for that very fancy introduction. So yes, NCJWLA is a social justice advocacy organization, and we also provide community services. And I just wanted to welcome all of you and invite you to get involved. We have an advocacy working group. Selena over here is actually the co-chair of the working group. And we have a lot of ways for you to get involved in different campaigns that are local and statewide as well. And I just wanted to plug 2 upcoming events. This Sunday, we actually have a training on how to get appointed to board or commissions. It's similar to this, it's slightly different. It's with Joanna Cabot, who is with the Liberty Hill Foundation, and they have a 6-month program on how to get appointed. So it goes up, it's a little bit, more from the advocacy perspective. But I also would love for you to take a flyer and just check out the other workshops in our advocacy training project. We'll be starting them again in October, and it includes things like how to write an op-ed, social media for advocacy, media relations, how to advocate for legislation. So really useful workshops if you want to be effective at advocacy. And then the other thing I wanted to plug is we're having a training on California family leave laws coming up on Thursday, April 11th, here in this room from 9 to 4:30. And it's going to be a really amazing training for anyone who feels like, if you have clientele, if you're a caregiver, if you know caregivers, or if you just feel like you just want to know what these laws are for your own benefit, please do take a flyer on your way out and feel free to come join us. Thank you. Thank you, John.
So let's get started. I want to introduce our first speaker, Los Angeles City Council Member Paul Koretz. Councilmember Koretz was first elected to the Los Angeles City Council in 2009 and represents the 5th District. This district covers this area, goes south through the South Robertson neighborhoods, then west to the 405 and up through Encino. We asked Councilmember Koretz to be here tonight because he's such a wonderful advocate for community engagement. He grew up in this area, lives in this area, and has represented this district for about 10 years. He also used to be on the Mid-City West Community Council's Public Policy Committee. So without further ado, Councilmember Paul Koretz.
Well, thank you, John, and hello, everybody. I appreciate you all being here, and I thank Dunn for putting this on, National Council for Jewish Women for hosting it, and Mid-City West for your involvement. There are a few things I could talk about, but I think probably the most topical would be, how do you actually get elected to a higher office? And I would say, I don't know if I'm the perfect example because I consider myself to be here somewhat accidentally, but I think the main thing is you should do some things for the community. Now, when I first ran for public office, I ran for the Los Angeles Board of Education when I was 18. And not surprisingly, I didn't win. It was even worse than it might seem because at the time I ran, it wasn't in districts. It was more than the city of Los Angeles. It was the entire LA Unified School District. And I was 18, I raised a few $1,000s. It was almost impossible to reach the electorate. I did get a lot of the issues that I ran on successfully implemented in the couple of years after I ran. So in that sense, if your purpose is to get issues out to the community, one of the things I ran on was the impossibility of actually having a dialogue about the district if you ran for the Board of Education because it was too large. So I told everybody at every speech, this really needs to be divided into districts. And Zev Yaroslavsky ran at the same time. He heard me speak about it about 50 times while he was running for city council. I think that helped him advance the idea. It was on the ballot, I think, the following year, and that's how it's been run ever since. Now, I thought it would actually solve a lot of the problems of LAUSD. It was just as bad in the ensuing years and just as bureaucratic, but at least people were able to have a dialogue and elect people based on the actual issues. Years later, I ran for the West Hollywood City Council, and it was somewhat ironic because what I learned from the school board race was I was much too shy to ever run for public office, and I would absolutely never do it again. But a friend of mine ran for the city council when the city of West Hollywood was created in 1984, and I ran his campaign, and we also helped the campaign to get the city established. And so when he was elected, even though he was the least known of 40 candidates until he was 22 years old, but we ran a great campaign for him, and he was one of the 5. They created a position called council deputy, so each council member had one staff person, and I was his. And I got to do all the governmental things that I would have wanted to do as an elected official, but I didn't have to be an elected official. So it was kind of perfect. We were a brand new city. We had decades of pent-up demand and constituent service that people wanted. And I worked about 90 hours a week for 4 years doing everything and helping everybody all over the city. Then when it was time for my friend to turn in his papers to run for re-election, the day before he said, you know, I actually hate this. He had been an incredible council member. Everyone thought by the time he was 30, he'd be in Congress and one of the bright stars on the West Side. He said, I just hate all the criticism you get as an elected official. I'm too thin-skinned, especially for the best things I do, and I'm going to quit. But you seem to be still enjoying this. Why don't you run? And I thought about it, and I'd helped everybody in town, and I had moved into a condo a couple months after the city was founded. The day before I moved in, somebody hid in my condo, jumped out and robbed a neighbor's Rolex watch. And so I started a neighborhood watch the first day I was in my neighborhood. And we eventually did a permit parking district up and down the Sunset Strip, which was organized because I went to thousands of homes myself and knocked on their doors and got signatures. And so people were really happy with me up and down the Sunset Strip. 2 weeks before it happened that I was offered the opportunity to run, I had actually stopped a violent crime in progress on the street where a mentally ill homeless person had kicked an older lady's dog to death on the street. I was in a bank and I heard people gasping at the window, and I ran out and she was holding the dog and said, he just killed my dog. So I chased him down the street. I recruited another guy. We both chased him down the street. We saw a sheriff's car and I pointed and they cut him off in front and we nailed him, and arrested him. And so I got an award from the sheriff's department as the neighborhood watch, what they called the Crime Watcher of the Year. So I was in all the newspapers and this and that. And then I was asked to run for office, and I almost couldn't say no because I couldn't help winning. So there I was. And it turned out there'd been a whole effort planned to defeat my council member because he was too pro-development. But the only thing they could say about me was he helped everybody in town. So there I was. And I figured, this is just luck. I'm on borrowed time. I'm just going to do whatever I think I should do. And when it catches up with me, I'll be knocked out of office. And 31 years later, I'm still doing this. So it's inadvertently an example of what you could try to do. Work for an elected official, get known helping people, start a neighborhood watch group, or be a leader in your HOA or neighborhood council. And that's a good way to do it. I think you have to do something at least in the community. I can only think of one elected official for years that literally done nothing and met with me to ask for my endorsement when I was in the state legislature. And when I asked him, what have you done in the community? He said, nothing. And that was Jack Weiss. Some of you may remember him. He wasn't necessarily the most popular guy when he was in office, and that might have been an indication why. But he was successful in his field as an attorney. I don't think that usually works. You usually really have to do something in the community. If not something, multiple things. So work for an elected official, help on your neighborhood council, be a city commissioner, especially in West Hollywood when I was there. Almost every council member, other than the original 5, came from being a commissioner of some sort, or even on multiple commissions. So I think that's the key, is public service. There are a lot of other things that go into a campaign, but honestly, if you haven't done that and you're not running for the right reasons, it's very difficult. But that's certainly what I would recommend. I think also there's going to be some discussion of how you get a job with government, with city council, et cetera. I think there are a few different logical ways. One is work on a campaign. Sometimes that works. And when I had to hire the people that I hired for my city council office, we combined people that had government experience and some folks that worked on my campaign and were just so good and so effective that I had to hire them. And we have one example here, John Darnell, who was my district director and now is doing great stuff for Dunn. My current legislative director, Jeff Ebenstein, who isn't here, but he worked on my campaign, and I was just lucky to find that there were people that were available and hadn't worked in government before and hadn't worked in politics before, but that's a great way to do it. Also, interning, I think, can work. I've had a lot of interns. Probably half of them I never even met, so it didn't help. But it's probably more random, but there were some where I got to work with them and observe them and said, we got to grab this person. So, I tried to figure out what was open, what would be open, and try and hire them because I had the opportunity to have a good person and didn't want to miss out. So I think those are a couple things you might want to think about. I mean, a lot of my staff also, we have an opening and you just put out some ads and interview people. And so they have to have some kind of background that makes you think they would be well suited for this. But I think that the people I've hired have come in generally in those 3 ways. So something for you to think about as well. And when I ran for city council here in Los Angeles, in the district where I had grown up and lived in for many years, a couple things that I did that wound up being relevant. I was on a Mid-City West committee. It wasn't actually a neighborhood council member, but that was a good opportunity, not only to meet people, but also to work on some issues that I could work on again later as a council member. Also, I worked for a nonprofit as executive director of a group called the Jewish Labor Committee, which connected the Jewish community and the labor movement, but also was located on 3rd Street at the Jewish Institute. And so got to know people in the community that way as well. So just a few thoughts, and happy to answer any questions you might have on these or any other topic. Back there. I'm not overly fond of it either because instead of having one giant district, you'd have two giant districts. I'm not sure it would make it small enough to be more manageable. And people have said to me, well, as an example, I've talked about how West Hollywood budgets. And during the years I was there, it would set aside around 5% of its budget each year in reserve. So after about 20 years, it had a whole budget year in reserve. And so when we were in the recession, West Hollywood had $80 million in its reserves, and so did Los Angeles. Now we're 100 times larger. So could we have done it? People said, no, it works for West Hollywood because it's smaller. But as far as I'm concerned, whatever you can do in West Hollywood, you could do 100 times and do it in Los Angeles. You just have to have the will to do it. So I'm not convinced. Whatever could make a bureaucracy more well-managed, I think could be done in all of LAUSD rather than the third that would be in the valley or the 2/3 roughly that would be left. I don't think that would make the kind of difference people hope that it would. Well, I mean, I haven't given tons and tons of thought to it, but if I were asked, and I just have been, so I guess I have to answer it, I would think, number one of the things that appears to be appealing about charter schools is there's more local control at the school site. So I would push for that, and I would try to spend less on this mammoth bureaucracy and more in the classroom. So that would just be a couple of thoughts right off the bat.
You've mentioned bureaucracy a couple of times. Can you talk a bit about some of the challenges you faced along those lines in your various roles and how you kind of fought through them and what the end results were?
Well, it's interesting. One of the areas of bureaucracy in both cities is planning. And when we first became a city, West Hollywood created a very bureaucratic planning process. And people would tell us, it's a pleasure to deal with Los Angeles compared to you guys. And I knew that wasn't a compliment. So I watched that as a staff person for almost 4 years. My friend's first term was 3.5 years because of the timing of when the city was created. And when I got elected, I said, we have to look at streamlining this. So let's look at other cities around the country and see what they do well. And what would normally happen is a developer would come in, they'd be told, do A, B, and C. They'd come back, say, okay, we did A, B, and C. A different planner would look it over and say, okay, now do D, E, and F. And it was almost an endless process. So we came up with some streamlining methods like having a checklist. And we all agree, you do these things in this circumstance and you're done. And that helped a lot. It's been difficult to try and get a handle on streamlining the city of Los Angeles because there's so many different moving pieces, different council members. You can have an idea and put it into motion, but it may never get heard by anybody in the appropriate committee, and it's not your call to get it heard. And once in a while, there's a nuclear option you can use to just put it on the floor, but it's only been used once in the 10 years I've been there, so it's not really a common practice either. So it's more difficult, but it sometimes can be difficult in a smaller city too. I'm a pretty stubborn guy, so I keep working at something till I run out of time. I still have 3.5 years on the issues that I've been pushing. Some of them have taken a long time. I've tried to create wildlife corridors so that our wildlife continues to thrive in the hillsides and doesn't get blocked off as we do more and more development. It's taken me almost 6 years, but we're now about to be able to implement it. So some of these things, it just takes a long time. You just have to keep pushing. But eventually they'll happen. I think David Rue's been pushing for a long time to try and clean up our contribution process, as an example. The motions that he's done that I've been on or seconded have gone nowhere, but now that we've had some ethical problems, I think the council's at least got to be more willing to look at making some changes. So sometimes it's just a certain amount of stubbornness with the more difficult bureaucracy, and you just have to keep pushing, and eventually most things happen.
I live at Second in Detroit, and it's actually, there's a lack of just stop signs and intersections in the neighborhood where he's walking, it's intimidating, and my girlfriend is personally scared to cross the street. I feel like, so I was like, oh, what do I do in that instance as just a citizen? So I feel like I've called your office or I've gone to the local, my neighborhood council, and no one really seems to actually have an answer. They say, oh, we're sorry to hear you're concerned about that. And that's kind of where the conversation normally ends. Maybe you can speak to that.
Well, if you give us specific locations, yeah, well, I'd have to know what they were to follow up on it, but usually what we'll do is go out and take a look, and if it looks like it's a problem, we'll put it on our list and push for it. It's a really slow process to get signals and stop signs, but we've gotten them over the years. We haven't always gotten them right away, but yeah, we've gotten a few signals done over the years and a fair number of stop signs, so
Maybe as a follow-up, is it worth my time to, contact your office or push for local engagement, or do I just kind of wait for the system to do its long process and just kind of wait?
I think if you're not active, it may not happen. And plus, we probably have 50 four-way stop sign requests that we have on a list, but unless we've got a couple that we've really prioritized because we've gone out and taken a look and said, this is really, really dangerous, it probably won't happen. If you want to, in fact, you could email it to my personal email so that I'll actually see it, which I'll give you if you want to write it down. Anybody else can use it too, but it's the only way I'll actually see it. My card, there's another email that I get hundreds and hundreds of emails on, or if I do something controversial, thousands and thousands, but I never actually see anything on that one. So it's Paul Koretz 42 at yahoo.com. Any other questions? Okay, over there.
What are the odds of successfully creating a position that you don't know exists and being appointed to? What are the odds of successfully creating a position that you don't know exists and being appointed to?
Well, it doesn't happen too often, but I haven't created a commission, for instance, in Los Angeles, but I created one in West Hollywood. And so whoever first approached me about the need, if they then tried to get on, they probably did. So it can happen on rare occasions. That's probably more likely to happen in a small city than Los Angeles, just to have an idea and get it created. But it probably happens on occasion. If not a commission, a task force. And we're recently trying to create a task force on protecting religious institutions, since we've been getting a higher number of hate crimes. And so, we had that idea. Didn't exist before, so occasionally new things get created. I'm not sure I have a path for that, but it can happen. Hey, thank you, everybody, and good luck with this.
Well, I'd like to call up our city commissioners that have come. We're going to start with our panel. See, 1 second here. So on our panel tonight, we have Debbie Wiebe. She's on the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners. Former Vice President of the LADWP Board of Commissioners, William Funderburk. And the second Vice President of the Human Relations Commission, Irma Becerra Nunez. So if you could please come up and take a seat at the table, and we'll get started. So before they speak, I'd like to explain a little bit about what a commissioner does, just in general. After our event, I'm going to send everyone an email with more information about city commissions and other topics that we have on the agenda tonight, so you can have the information that you came here to receive. The city's website also has more detailed information about each commission as well. So in general, city departments and bureaus are headed by general managers or directors. City commissioners usually help establish policy for a given department. For example, the 5-member board of the Water and Power Commissioners establishes policy for the LADWP. The board members are appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the city council for 5-year terms. However, some departments are also headed by an advisory or controlling board or commission appointed by the mayor, subject to confirmation of the city council. There are a few boards and commissions that are appointed by each of the 15 council members. For example, the Board of Public Works is the only full-time paid board. They sort of act like the general manager of the Department of Public Works, since there isn't a general manager for that department. It's actually a board that oversees them. And each board member actually oversees a bureau. For example, the Bureau of Engineering, Bureau of Street Lighting. There's 5 bureaus. Each board member oversees a bureau. Appointees to commissions must be voting residents of the city of Los Angeles and cannot be members of the city council nor sit on more than one board or commission at a time. Now let's go to our panel. Today we're joined by 3 city commissioners who have served the city for many years, so let's give them a round of applause for coming. As a friendly reminder, we provided a biography for each person so you can read more about them. So I want to ask for a show of hands, who here has never met a city commissioner in their life? Never met a city commissioner? Raise your hands. Okay, so we have a few people, okay. Who here doesn't really know what a commissioner does? Who here is not really familiar with what the work of city commissioner, okay, so good. Well, we have at least some people that aren't too familiar, so that's what this event really is about, is to get more familiar with it, and even sometimes folks that maybe have worked with maybe one commissioner because maybe they worked on a certain issue or a certain project or something. It's this kind of work is a part of the city that maybe the public isn't as familiar with. So we like having this event so we can showcase this. And again, it's recorded, and so if your friends and family are interested, they can watch it. There's there's I think close to 50 or so, don't quote me, but around there, but maybe about 50 commissions in the city. So tonight, we can't have all 50 represented tonight. We have 3. We do this event once a year, but we have a pretty good panel up here. Of folks that have had various backgrounds and experiences, and they work on different issues. And so each commissioner will speak for about 3 minutes to introduce themselves, then we're going to take a few questions. So first, let me introduce Irma Becerra Nunez. Irma is the second Vice President of the Human Relations Commission, which is inside the Housing and Community Investment Department. Irma.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the Jewish Federation for having us here. So from your questions and the presentation that's been made, I first want to say Paul Koretz is my representative. I live in Encino, but I grew up in East Los Angeles, and so I'm really proud to have him as my representative. We worked together in the past. It sounds like many of you are very interested in getting deeper into politics. You've all had to run for your positions. I've had a very unique experience where I was born into a political family. My uncle was Congressman Edward Roybal, who was the first Mexican-American elected official to the Los Angeles City Council. And when he organized in East Los Angeles, he created the first multi-ethnic coalition in Boyle Heights. And so it was the Jewish community, the Mexican-American Chicano community, everyone who was involved in that area. As you know, Boyle Heights is really the Alice Island of the Pacific Coast. But my greatest inspiration was my mother, Hortensia Becerra Nunez. And she was a community activist, but she was also a strong believer in the arts as a powerful tool to inspire creativity, but also to empower young people to become community leaders. And one of the greatest legacies that she always empowered myself and my siblings with was talking about our family heritage. As Mexican Americans, our family has lived in California for over 250 years. So we are not immigrants, but that California and the entire southwest of the United States is our motherland. And so I really have worn many different hats throughout my career. As a cultural arts educator, performance and visual artist, archivist and preservationist, and community revitalization advocate, as well as a community activist. And so I'm the founder of Doña Irma Mexican American Heritage Arts Institute, founder and owner. It's a private business. But I'm also partner and representative of an internationally renowned Chicano architectural designer, muralist, and sculptor, Don Juan Johnny D. Gonzalez, who's credited for creating the first Chicano mural in East Los Angeles and just had an exhibit at LACMA as part of the Getty Pacific Standard Time exhibits, which I worked with him on as his archivist. I'm also partners with him as co-founder, co-chair of the Coalition to Save the First Street Store Chicano Historical Monument, and also Coalition to Save Older Adult Education. So I taught at Loyola Marymount University, East Los Angeles College, Los Angeles Unified School District. But when I was in high school, you figure growing up in politics, you think that this would be something very natural to me. But actually, as a young person, I took all of it for granted. Going to grassroots events, going to prominent events at Biltmore, I really didn't understand what it was all about. And it wasn't until I was 16 when we had the East Los Angeles walkouts that all of a sudden it crystallized in my mind what my family has been trying to instill in me all these years. And so at Cal State LA, I had a 5-year scholarship in the first Chicano bilingual bicultural teacher training program called Project Maestro, and I was able to get a life credential in adult education. But my partner and I traveled throughout California with our cultural arts educational program and a multicultural traveling art exhibit in order to really empower young people and adults to teach us about our common human bond and what we all share. And so even though my passion is as an artist, as an educator, I'm always drawn into political issues. And so I've been an advocate as far as creating neighborhood youth centers in East LA City Terrace. I was co-chair of the Committee for Justice for Gordon Castillo Hall and raised over $50,000 from the Presbyterian Church. And he was found innocent and freed after 3 years in a maximum security men's prison at the age of 15. And also, we organized multi-ethnic coalitions, the Jewish, the Chicano, the Mexican community, after an exhibit at the UCLA Fowler Museum when I was teaching older adult educations in Sherman Oaks and in the Northeast LA. It was my Jewish students, my Chicano Latino students, my Chinese, Filipino, multi-ethnic students who wrote letters to Supervisor Zev Yaroslavsky, Gloria Molina, where we saved the first street store Chicano Historical Monument, an 18-tile mural that had been featured in Time magazine in the 1970s and was going to be demolished by a charter school. And we saved that, and we're still working on the final revitalization and restoration and enhancement of that project. And so it was, when I know they're going to ask us questions about how we became commissioners, and I think the important lesson is to be passionate about what you love and what you believe in, while at the same time advocating for your values. And what's really helped me is the fact that I've worked in so many different communities, that I've gotten to know people from other cultures, other religious backgrounds, other economic backgrounds, who I would have never have known before if it wasn't for my work. And it's through that work and that culmination that has brought me here today. And so it's an honor to be here with you and with my wonderful fellow commissioners who I share the stage with. Thank you so much.
So next, let me introduce Debbie Weaving. Debbie is a commissioner on the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners and also a former president of the Central Hollywood Neighborhood Council. I work for the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment, and we work with the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners to help set policy for the neighborhood council system. So let's get Debbie a round of applause.
Okay. Well, that was an inspirational story, and I'm very happy to be able to hear what has brought other commissioners to their positions. Mine is a very different story. I have always lived in Los Angeles, actually the Hollywood area, born and raised in Hollywood. Had no interest in politics because I really didn't understand what the governmental system, what the impact was on me until I became an adult, and my neighborhood was actually taken over by professional drug dealers. And in that process, it became apparent that we had to become activated as a neighborhood, not stay behind closed doors, but as our council member has pointed out earlier, we had to create a neighborhood watch, we had to patrol, we had to work with the businesses, schools, the police department, and from that, many wonderful things grew. You know, we grew to know our neighbors. We were able to plant trees. We were able to improve our parks. And as that evolved, of course, wanting the neighborhood and my family and then later on grandchildren to be empowered and to be safe, other opportunities came up where I was given the chance to be on different boards, whether it be on the Chamber of Commerce or it was later on council members asking me to serve on different community forums. Every chance that came along, I took that chance. So this is, I think, the nuts and bolts of my message, is that whenever you're given the opportunity, just as said previously, whatever your passion is, you go towards whatever that is. But when you're given that opportunity to serve, take it. It doesn't matter whether it was when I was asked to chair Prop K committee. It took extra time. It took time away from my family, but at the same time, I knew that our local parks were going to get their due and the amount of funding that they actually needed in order to improve the parks. So it was improving the entire community. The amount of hours, I don't know, John, do you want us to go into how we became commissioners at this point, or are we gonna look at that a little bit later?
Yeah, the first, in the first round here is just introductions, and then we'll ask some questions. But yeah, if you'd like to touch on that, go ahead.
Well, I think the next step is whenever the city gave us an opportunity to be involved, whether whether a council member or the mayor's office, I always said yes. Neighborhood councils came about. A lot of you are parts of neighborhood councils, board members or committee members. And when that happened, I certified the first neighborhood council in the Hollywood area, not because of wanting to pat myself on the back, but I thought, wow, the city's giving us an opportunity. We can be a part of the city government. Why not? You take that, you run with it. And after being present there for a long time, the treasurer, then other opportunities came along. So whenever I was asked to do something, I did it. But when I was asked first if I was interested in being a commissioner, it was to be on a planning commission. Well, you know what planning's like. I wasn't eager for that. So I kindly asked, would Board of Neighborhood Commissioners be possible, because I felt that I could give something back in that area. So I would urge you not to hesitate. If you feel that your passion is in a particular area, give in that area. And anyway, so years later, here I am. I'm still on the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners. It's supposed to be 2 meetings a month. Oh, it's more than that. And I will just share with you that when I came up to see John earlier tonight and sort of check in, he said, when I first met a commissioner, I thought I was looking at a little god. I thought, oh my goodness, commissioner, you have to be some very, very special person in this world. Well, special in that you're not getting paid. You are giving of your time. Yes, you are asked through the mayor's office to have this particular position, and it is a tremendous honor, but it's a lot of work, and it's very fulfilling, and it's something I would encourage anyone to do should you be asked, or if you decide to put your name in the basket to be a commissioner, because it's a wonderful way to connect with your city, and it's a wonderful way to give back and see positive results.
So next, let me introduce Bill Funderburg. He's the former Vice President of the LADWP Board of Commissioners. Let's get him on.
Thank you, John. Let's see. So I'm very, very honored to be even in the presence of these 2 commissioners. I think that it's awe-inspiring to hear the story of a family that sounds like an institution in having devoted its life to engagement, equity, and arts, as well as someone who has taken the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment to new levels. Because when I got onto the neighborhood council, wasn't involuntarily, but my story is a little different. And it's not unlike the 2 ladies who sit next to me, but let me just give you a couple of stories of what I am the accidental commissioner to begin with, because I really did not know what LADWP did, except they seemed to sue a lot of my clients. I'm an environmental lawyer, I'm a business lawyer. My family's been in small business and business for multi-generations, and even in the Jim Crow South, my family managed to eke out a living, operating businesses that had a unlimited demand. Funeral home. And so they might have not gotten paid any money, and they might have gone through some very wicked periods of witnessing firsthand in the 30s and 40s and 50s inhumanity that was going on, not just domestically, but overseas, because my father's grandmother was Ashkenazi Jewish, and I have slaveholders and slaves in my family. So I have an interesting ancestral background of indigenous, African, all countries, European, and even Southeast Asian. But that's almost irrelevant as to how I got on the commission, because it started with, the way I say, introduce myself. I do not introduce myself as a former commissioner or commissioner. I'm a block captain. To me, being a block captain is what neighborhood engagement is all about. And for those of you who have felt unsafe, and I'm a dad, I have 2 daughters, and I take this seriously. You know, when I move into a neighborhood with a 12 and 17-year-old, and nothing against gangs. Gangs are people too, just like corporations are. But you know, there's some wickedly very interesting symbol on the wall that's across from my house on Sycamore Avenue. I happen to be across in the greater, so I started off on the Greater Wilshire Neighborhood Council Board after I just showed up in Tom LaBlanche's office and kept on showing up and said, we need speed humps, we need this, we need that, we need this. So I think that I never tried to be a commissioner. In fact, I'm not even sure I wanted to be a commissioner. When Eric Garcetti called up, I said, you know, why should I accept this? And his transition team called me up later and said, are you crazy? You know, everybody wants to be on the DWP. And I said, well, I don't necessarily want to do this. So don't assume that I want to do this just because it seems like it's a powerful thing. But I found that in small ways and little ways, whether it's DWP, Council on Women, Council on Human Relations, or whatever, as a commissioner, be it for me being a commissioner, may have begun with just trying to get some speed humps and some gang graffiti out of my neighborhood and get a parking permit district immediately put in like that, no matter what. Because to me, it was my fight or flight primal caveman that wanted to protect my women, my wife, my two daughters. But it got noticed, and I wasn't trying to get noticed. And as John will remember, I wasn't not really a grandstander, and I kind of don't really even like talking in front of a mic. I just like getting the work done. And I think that what I see in all the faces here, each and every one of you, this seems like a group of people that would be amazing commissioners. So I'm really happy to see everyone here because it's about getting the work done. It really isn't about the photo ops and the recognition that you may get down the road. Because if you're doing it for that, there's another room, okay? There's actually a place back in Washington, D.C. where I grew up. And if you want to, if you want a lot of attention, they're looking for people to testify at the hearings in the Capitol. So if you want attention, then do it that way. But if you want to really make a difference in the lives, one of the commissioners here talked about meeting people of different backgrounds. I already came from different backgrounds, but to me, DWP, in a very odd way, was a bridge to my past, and that it actually forced me to confront parts of my identity that I really had not been culturally raised with. I had Jewish, I had Catholic, I was raised Catholic, but what do I do with this element of me? I had indigenous in me, but I was African American, but I had whatever in me. And so for me, whether it was understanding the difference between East LA and Boyle Heights, which I made the mistake of mixing up once, and I learned very quickly that and it was almost like a postgraduate education. And what it did was it connected me to people, including people who were in prison. I went to prison. I didn't go there involuntarily. I went there voluntarily as part of my own journey to understand what it's like to be incarcerated. And I didn't just choose county jail. What the group that chose me, it was just serendipity. We went to the county in the maximum security prison in Lancaster. And so, it was an interesting opportunity for me to impact and bring people into the process who really weren't heard, who were left out, who were forgotten, whether they were in Reseda or they were in Watts. And I talked a lot about people I know who were, children of coal miners who have settled in parts of the city, but they're quiet, they're not heard. And so I also talked about people, that I have known through this work in Watts. So to me, how do you get on a commission? I would say don't try. And maybe that sounds counterintuitive, but actually, I didn't try. And John here did tolerate some of my more neophyte, primary questions as a GWNC board member, and he would come before I would just come in from left field to right field, but I always tried to be respectful, dignified, things that, at least in my family, I think everybody in this room values. And I think that's missing right now, especially, and I don't point the finger at any one party, actually. I think that it's everywhere. Fear and hate have infected our society. The neighborhood council department is trying to be the thread that holds the cloth of the city and the fabric of the city together. So thanks to John, thanks to Councilmember Krebs, thanks to the Mid-City Neighborhood Council Board. How many Mid-City people are here, the Neighborhood Council Board members? I worked very closely with you at GWNC on some collaborations, both on the subway, noise issues, road issues, traffic issues, road diet issues, this issue, that issue, in my time on the neighborhood council. But I had to resign from the neighborhood council once DWP started consuming probably 1,000 hours to 1,500 hours a year. So that's not to scare anybody away, by the way, because I kind of viewed it as every time I saw an issue, I got to self-educate and learn about something that I hadn't learned about, whether it was, you know, James Baldwin, The Road, Thucydides, or whatever it is, something that I could learn about. And I could weave that in my discussions with different citizens groups. So I would say don't try to get something other than try to make an impact already on what, you know, about something that you're passionate about, that your life's mission is about. And if you're still looking for your life's mission, then join the club, because I am still also. I saw Dead Poets Society on my way back from DC a couple days ago. I cried again, okay? And it really, we need to be reminded, I think, that it's not about what everybody else wants. It's about really trying to make an impact on the daily lives of people, making people feel safer, making people feel more fulfilled, and also restoring trust in government. I think the neighborhood councils have been a great bridge to that. Hope everybody either runs for a neighborhood council position, all you need to do, you don't need to be noisy, but it does help to be persistent, just like everybody has been to get to where they are right now in life. It helps to be persistent. So I won't get into my family. John knows my family, and that's an encyclopedia. So I think I wanted to kind of keep it just with, you know, don't try to get something just to get it, but do the work that other people have done. And if you make an impact, you will get noticed. So start with your block, expand to your neighborhood council, and you may too wind up as vice chair of the board of the largest public utility in the country. So.
Well, I had a few questions to ask these commissioners, but they pretty much answered them. So I'm also a block captain, right? If I actually co-captains with my wife, she's the real block captain. But we actually just went through our emergency go backpacks the other day. We're actually going to host community work is really important. We're actually going to host like a block meeting just for our neighbors and tell folks how to turn off their gas in their house, how to turn off their water, and how to make a go backpack. That's all we're going to do. And we're going to have coffee with our neighbors. Stuff like that makes a difference. You're right. All the commissioners have mentioned different things like that. When's the last time you had an earthquake? 25 years ago. Think about it, right? There's a lot of different things, environmental issues, right? Cultural issues, right? These things matter. So whatever you're good at, wherever you can help, just do it. You know, I think that's what a lot of these commissioners have said today or tonight. And so it is really important. And these commissions, a lot of them, or most of them, actually help set policy for the city. So, for example, you know, the Rec and Parks Commission, they actually set policy for the fees that parks charge. So if you want to have a birthday party for your kid in the park, like I try to do, you know, you have to pay a little something, you know, and they actually, you know, they direct those fees and work with, you know, the city council as far as how the budget's going to work and all that. So, so now when I go to questions from the audience, I want to take a few questions and make sure you have the opportunity to get, since we have this panel here. So let me take the young lady here in the back in the blue shirt. Go ahead. You want to go first? So who's ever experienced an earthquake or, okay. So in 94, it was 4:30 in the morning. I was laying there, I was 12 years old. Okay. House starts shaking, right? You hear things, this and that. You know, you wait till it's over and then you walk out of the house. What the Go Pack Pack is you set it by your front door so that you can carry it outside. There's an emergency blanket inside. There's about 2 days worth of water and food. You know, a few other things in there, maybe some toilet paper, you know, things that you're not going to be without, because for about maybe a week or 10 days or so, you're not going to have anything. The police won't show up, the fire department won't show up. You're going to be busy with, you know, gas lines blowing up in the street like we had on Balboa Boulevard, you know, in the Sacramento Valley at that time. So you basically, just for example, my story, we walked out, we sat in the car till about 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning until the sun came up with the heater on for about 2.5 hours. I just sat there until the sun came up and we could see the damage around us in our block when it happened. That was an earthquake, yeah. Actually, it was centered in Reseda, not Northridge. Yeah, exactly. But all those buildings came down in Northridge, so they called it Reseda. I was living in Reseda at the time, probably from Reseda. So what you do is you're able to just walk out with your backpack and you have a couple days of supplies. Because if you're not able to go to your house right away or something happens, you know, you're not going to be starving, first of all. And then also maybe have some hygiene things in there, like maybe some toothpaste, some toilet paper. Very just simplified version. So usually actually you want about 3 days worth of supplies. So, you know, without going into too much detail, that's pretty much what it is. If anyone after the event wants to have questions about that, I'm happy to send information. So.
Yeah. May I piggyback on that?
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well,
Piggyback.
Last night, my husband and I had our neighbors in for a meeting for what now LA has an emergency preparedness program that you can call experts in to bring this program into your home and into your neighborhood, and it's called Ready Your LA Neighborhood. So RYLAN, and that's all you have to do is just put that into your you know, just Google that, and you're going to see all the emergency preparedness opportunities, and they will come out and help you prepare your specific neighborhood. And I think that's not what we're here for, but I'm just piggybacking on that because it's important. We all need to be prepared regardless of what the emergency is. So just remember RYLAN, and the city will send people out to train you, and you will be prepared. Just follow the steps.
And if I could say something, through the Human Relations Commission and our department, the Housing and Community Investment Department, we had our commission summit, and I brought up the question about emergency preparedness for homeless. And so the city is working on that issue. And so if any of you work with the homeless, you should contact the city to see what initiatives and what plan they have for homeless. Because if there's an emergency, that would really be a catastrophe if the homeless are not prepared. And even those who are not homeless but who are in the street during the time of a catastrophe, we need to know what to do.
You can also have one for your car as well, not just your house. It's really hard to do. So for flood comes like.
The reason I asked is because that's part of my campaign platform for Neighborhood Council, emergency preparedness, among other things. And so far, I've got a camping light to tell people to let's have that. You know, and that's not even, you can get it at Home Depot, a light that is a camping light, but it's also a work light, and it's got a week's worth of energy to it. It's a great thing. And water, and then I'm searching for ideas. Hey, I'm going to steal your idea and spread it in my front hand.
I'm happy to send you information as well about that. So we have the lady here.
Pivoting a bit back to this mission, and thank you all for coming and giving your background. I'm just trying to get a bit more clarity on what things actually look like in the mission. So maybe if you could each talk about one issue or policy that your particular commission worked on, that could give a great example.
Okay, start. Okay, well, the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners oversees policy for neighborhood councils. So anything that is in the city charter or the plan for neighborhood councils is something that the commission reviews and sometimes needs to suggest new policies for neighborhood councils depending on reviews. Recently, there were a number of town halls that were done through the commission, and also Councilmember Rue's committee, which was Hank, and someone will help me remember what the new commission is, oh, is John there? What is the new committee called? Well, anyway, that's not the important thing. There is a committee within the city council that has the purview over a Department of Neighborhood Empowerment, over the commission and neighborhood councils. And from time to time, and this has just happened now, recently, because neighborhood councils are at the 15-year mark, there is the opportunity to look at what the rules, policies are for neighborhood councils. And so that review has been made, and it was only made with a great amount of input from the neighborhood councils. Some things will be brought into the different policies and will be changed so that neighborhood councils will be better represented in ways that they feel they should be. Other things, I think, just need to be updated from time to time. And the other thing that happens regularly with neighborhood councils is that because a number of them, when they first formed back 15 years ago, had something like 100,000 stakeholders. And now they've decided it's just too big. So they are subdividing. And that's something that we have to look at, whether or not the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment does take in that application at first and go through whether or not it is following all the policies, and then it has to come to the commission. If a neighborhood council wants to change their bylaws, that has to come to the commission, and we have to hear it. So we are quasi-judicial in what we're doing. We can also propose policy and change. I hope that gives you an idea.
So it's called the Health, Education, and Neighborhood Councils Committee.
Yes. Okay.
So my experience, and I haven't mentioned how I became a commissioner. So working with LAUSD Older Adult Education through the Division of Adult and Career Education, it was during the recession that immediately they wanted to slash the older adult program, which are the active seniors who are helping raise the children in the school district, and also parent education, the parents of the children who are in the school district. And so Eric Garcetti, who was the president of the city council at that time, he represented the Glassell Park Senior Center. He really worked actively with us. We went to the Board of Education, and we were able to, and it was hundreds of thousands of teachers, parents, community who advocated to save adult education, which was going to be completely slashed, not just parent ed and older adult ed, but all of adult ed, which is career education, etc. And so after that, older adult ed and parent ed were cut from 400 teachers to 0 for older adult, etc. And so when Eric Garcetti became mayor, I was amazed because I didn't even think anything about being a commissioner. I knew about public works, which were paid commissioners, but I wasn't really aware of all these other commissions in the city. And one of my seniors said, "Gee, maybe you're going to be appointed as a commissioner." And I was like really shocked. I said, "Commissioner, what's that all about?" I wasn't really aware of it. And so when Eric Garcetti became mayor, he appointed me to Community and Family Services. And so it was a real shock and a real honor, and I really didn't know what it was all about. Now this was still during the recession, and so sitting on that commission, we were hearing about budget cuts from HUD, from all these different programs. It was really devastating. And as a community activist, I was really feeling hand-tied that what can I really do as a commissioner? When we had our full commission orientation, they made it very clear, we do not have power, but we have influence. So we do not make policy, but we can influence policy. And so after a couple of years that I was with the other commission, a window opened for me to enter the Human Relations Commission. And it was something what you had said, that if it's not a really good fit for you in one commission, then don't hesitate to explore and ask if there's something else that might be a better fit. And so I was really thrilled that Mayor Eric Garcetti then appointed me to the Human Relations Commission. And this has been a very exciting experience. It was still a struggle for all the commissions because of the recession, but little by little, the city has been so innovative in trying to find alternatives to the cuts. And so we were understaffed. We finally have more staff. We're going through our strategic planning process where now commissioners are really able to input what it is that is important to us as individuals, as well as what are the key issues important to the city and our state and our nation. And so we're really able to really dig in and get involved. And so one of the initiatives that I was able to introduce was Not in Our Town, is the producer of a film called Light in the Darkness that came out on PBS about a young man in New York who was killed because they thought he was a Mexican. And when the mayor explored the issue, it turned out that there was a group of high school students that every week systematically were hunting for Mexicans, even though it was an Ecuadorian community. And so a lot of this hate crime and rhetoric that has been going on these past years have really corrupted the minds of young people and have empowered those who were underground to like come out and do some pretty horrible things. But the film is also really enlightening and inspiring. That's why it's Light in the Darkness, because this multi-ethnic community really came together to address this issue and explore the undercurrent of what the problems were that caused it and how to change it. And so our commission was able to collaborate with Councilmember Gil Cedillo and the Mexican Consulate to have a screening at the Mexican Consulate and to invite key leaders from diverse communities. And Not in Our Town donated something like 32 DVDs that we're distributing through the LA Public Library that are available free of charge to any individual, school, community center, church to be able to have additional screenings. And they have free educational curriculum to have discussions to really explore what is it that's dividing our nation and how we can come together. And so that's an example of something we've done through my commission. We also incubated per the request of the City Council to write the report on declaring Indigenous Peoples Day. And after a 2-year or more process, that now has become an official holiday. And so there's a number, so our commission primarily focuses on targeting, exploring key issues, incubating initiatives, and then working with other entities through the community, like the transgender community, et cetera, to be able to realize those commissions and let them go for other groups to develop.
I'm learning, I like it.
Let's see. I'm going to try to be pretty short here, which for a lawyer is near impossible. I would say sustainability, just to put it in one word. So my role at the Department of Water and Power, there are probably 80 to 90% of the enterprise touches the 3 legs of the sustainability stool. This council, I don't know how involved you are with the Neighborhood Council Sustainability Alliance, which is something that Commissioner Jill Banks-Barad and I have tried to kind of refocus and recenter their activity. It's an alliance that, as commissioners, we were not happy that only 40 or 50 of the neighborhood councils belong to the Neighborhood Council Sustainability Alliance, and my own neighborhood council, Greater Wilshire, pretty much decided, and hers, Sherman Oaks, pretty much decided to take an inactive role because wasn't really doing, and that's unfortunately not in the purview of DUN, Department of Neighborhood Empowerment. But so that's somewhat negative. So let me start talking about something positive at DWP. Not that there were a lot of positive things going on in 2013 with everybody getting $1 million bills and being in the middle of a drought and having to increase investments, aka rates. I can say that now. I'm off message, entirely off message. It's great. I love being a free agent. It's my but the three legs of the sustainability stool are economy, equity, and environment. And I think one of the biggest things that I finally got my arms around was that you can do all three at the same time and sometimes actually create synergies. For those of you who are into game theory, non-zero-sum games, it's a prisoner's dilemma. Cooperation actually works, contrary to what people think at 1600 Pennsylvania. It's not a bunch of bilateral agreements. We don't exist just to exist with our neighbors, although neighborhood councils give us the opportunity for that. What I did on sustainability, DWP is pretty well documented, but I rewrote the rules on equity, and I turned the word equity from meaning one thing, which is generally just kind of underrepresented communities, to meaning fairness for all. Because under Props 26 and 218, which limits the power of public utilities to do so-called social programs, my feeling was, as a business person and as a ratepayer, I want there to be an economic case for everything. And the problem is, to be honest with you, is the policymakers get lazy. And they just try to jam things through based on emotion without having an underlying economic case, because generally there's an economic case for most policies that are good, that are progressive, actually, because when you look at the health externalities, when you look at the deserts that exist in all parts of the city, whether it's a tree canopy desert, whether it's a food desert, whether it's a condom desert, you're talking about areas of the city that are not paid attention to. Similarly, there are areas of the city that people may think are paid attention to in one sense, like electricity outages, but it's more just a matter of refocusing the neighbors. Where getting electricity outages, what happens if you don't want a step-down transformer in your backyard? What is it now? YIMBY instead of NIMBY? So we need more YIMBYs in this city. Having been a NIMBY myself and complained like hell, mind you, I sat next to Jack Humphreyville. For those of you who don't know him, and Jack is actually a very good friend of mine. We have a lot of common friends that go back generationally on the East Coast. But I dealt with a lot of different people to carry out these sustainability initiatives, but I generally found that if you talk about people's pockets as well as talking about improving safety and the environment, you can sometimes get even more money for those that are less served, but you have to do the work to get people to buy into it. So to me, I didn't talk about racial equity. I talked about gender equity. It's easier, it's less of it's not that I didn't want to talk about racial equity, but I have a privilege as a male. I have a privilege as a straight male. I don't have to deal with LGBTQ, hatred, poison, vile, horrible things. I don't have to. So all the same sustainability initiatives, almost from the get-go. Jack wanted to kill the Clean Tech Incubator. How many of you have been to the Clean Tech Incubator? Raise your hand higher. I urge every single one of you in your journey to understand the different parts of LA. It's the arts district, and as a lawyer and an environmental lawyer who represents utilities and manufacturing companies, I found that the business community often is treated second shrift, is not given priority. And so I thought that the business community needed some place to take its customers and also to be treated like a real customer. So DWP's customer first agenda, we were able to do equity, part of the sustainability, and it's a clean tech incubator. If your children haven't been there and you've blown an opportunity for giving them an amazing enrichment experience that's totally free. There's the home of the future. There's the vehicles of the future. There's the grid of the future. There's everything of the future right there. So I would recommend that everybody go to the Clean Tech Incubator, but 3 of the commissioners wanted to kill it. It was a warehouse. It was empty when I got on the commission. And I pulled the 3rd vote over. And I did a lot of work. I'd already done a lot of work, but I knew a lot about I knew most of what I was talking about. It did help to have the environmental legal background, but I had never been a commissioner. And that's why I said I was the accidental commissioner, because I became known as the pit bull, who was not going to be afraid to ask very impolitic questions. Like, you know, provide me with the basis for what you were telling me, just basic questions, but you'd be surprised at how, and it's a hardworking staff, but every staff of every agency does their job to protect the, what I call the physics of government. So mass momentum and inertia only exist from the standpoint of keeping things the same way they are, and it's very resistant to change. Luckily, I think Mayor Garcetti saw the importance for innovation, importance for sustainability, and we did it. One last thing that I'll mention that was just moving to me, and I said it's a bridge to my past, bridge to my future. And we'll say this because my late uncle died January 1st of 2018, I think. Board Member Fong, I think that you've met my Uncle Jim. My Uncle Jim, Reverend Dr. James Hester Hargett, I was born in the segregated South along with his wife, who's my dad's mom. And I had the distinct honor to give him an award as a civil rights pioneer with Sylvia Mendez, and Rabbi Sandy Reagans. Both were co-conspirators with my uncle in the 1950s to break down a lot of walls. Whether it was the covenants that prohibited blacks, Jews, and Mexicans from even buying real estate or getting loans in certain areas, or it was my uncle was not a Bible-thumping minister. He was from the QCC, very, very old line Protestant intellectual side, but he, this is 57 to 69, he had lesbian choir members. That was not very popular in 1957 or whenever, okay? So to me, it was an opportunity for me to do some things that are still not popular as a commissioner. And I would say one thing, if you ever become a commissioner or get on the neighborhood council, make friends with the commissioners of the agencies that have the money. And some of these agencies are grossly underfunded. One of the things that I did on sustainability, so what I did was just try to create a nexus to sustainability, because DWP is investing so much in renewables and getting off of coal and doing all these things like Councilmember Peretz has pushed, the 100% initiative, recycling water, stormwater capture, which I've been an expert in for 30 years, all of those things. So I said, well, Watts Towers needs some money to support. Rosie Lee Hooks, she's this unnoticed gem. And so I said, can't we expand that sustainability garden and throw some electric vehicle chargers in here? It wasn't a giveaway. It was something that was part of an initiative that was already funded. And the equity initiative that we had mapped the disparities and inequities, whether it was for power service and reliability, where we found affluent neighborhoods needed more investment to get the reliability because there were no step-down transformers because the neighbors had been too NIMBY and not YIMBY. Or in areas that are historically underserved, Boyle Heights, Pacoima, other parts of Northeast San Fernando Valley, Watts, South Central, da-da-da. And even in Reseda, where you have senior citizens living on a fixed income and $1 a month through their DWP bill actually makes a difference part of the problem, I think, is we as commissioners and as neighborhood activists, our social silos are so limited. So one of the things I asked for was educational attainment. Every room that I speak at, Funderburk, what are you talking about? But I ask people to raise their hands if they, go through the levels of education. And most of the audiences that I speak with, 90% of the people in the audience have had some college, 95, more like it. Most have college degrees. That's so unrepresentative of the city. Whether it's, the city is 60, 70% Latino. You'd never know it with the way that these agencies look and serve people, because it's not just the Latino population, it's the entire immigrant population is afraid because of efforts to divide all of us. So I'm going to take a cliche from, I shouldn't say that, from Eric Garcetti, that we are, when you get on a commission, because every single one of you will be on a commission. I'm a positive thinker, and not the new age type, okay? I do a little meditation every now and then, but you will be on a commission. You will serve because you came here, you took the time to come here. The neighborhood and the neighborhoods need you to come and keep the country and the city together. Whether you're with DWP, or you're with the whatever commission, or you're with the neighborhood council, take a step in, get in the water, make some things happen for your immediate charge, and then if you get asked to do something else, which you will be, then find the fit, which I think is really important, because for me, DWP found me, but Mayor Garcetti's transition team did a phenomenal job at chemistry for the major agencies that already have existing sources of funding. And DWP has $6 billion a year. Yeah, a lot of that goes to water and power generation. But how that money is spent among the 7,500 vendors and subcontractors and the like, there are a lot of opportunities to do things and make change with money because, right? I mean, go to the budget committee, right? You go to, what's the most powerful committee in the House of Representatives? What about Ways and Means, right? In addition to rules is very important, but Ways and Means. How are you going to do things without means? I mean, that's where the spending power, Article 1, Section 8 is, Congress. So I would say sustainability was something that really got my gourd. It really excited me. And I chose to spend the time that I did. You can spend 50 hours a month, or you can spend 150 a month on your commission, because all you need to do is look at the bylaws, purpose, and mission. That's your jurisdiction. Just don't get out of the lane. But if you don't have enough money in your commission or your agency, go find it. Don't just sit on your butt and say, we don't have any money, we're not funded. You go to the other agencies and say, there's a case, there's an economic case why we should have more money, so let's do an MOU, okay? Let's do something creative. That's what whoever appointed you is probably looking for. And that gave me an opportunity, so thank you for your question to talk about what really got me excited about working as commissioner. Thanks.
Well, let's thank the commissioners for having this panel.
John, I'd like to add that I think all of you who are part of a neighborhood council are in a really unique and exciting position, because the neighborhood council in Glassell Park was really instrumental in working with educators, parent groups, older adult education leaders, etc., to achieving all of the goals that we accomplish on the state level. The governor approved eligibility for funding for older adult ed, although he did not make it mandatory. So we opened it up to the whole state, where districts like Baldwin Park and others have older adult ed. LAUSD does not. And so we don't give up on issues, even if they take a long time. Sometimes you have to stop, take a breather, and go back to issues. But the Neighborhood Council was really instrumental in working with us to go to LAUSD and do different things. And so as Neighborhood Council members, you were elected. And so you have key people in your community who believe in you. And so it's important for you to reach out to different segments of your community who are working on different issues, to not only focus on your neighborhood council issues, but what are the issues that other groups are working on. And through your work, you will, things as my other commissioners have said, don't work to get recognition. Don't work because you want to be appointed a commissioner or any other higher position. You need to follow your passion, work with other groups, and then things will automatically come to you as they have. In regards to my Human Relations Commission, I wanted to really emphasize how we are working with LAPD and the African American community regarding key issues. We're working with the Boyle Heights Initiative in East LA regarding those issues. We're working with the transgender community, the Muslim and the Jewish community. We're actually organizing with the Jewish Federation a interfaith seder, I think if that's the correct pronunciation, seder, which is a dinner held during Passover. And the Jewish Federation has invited different cultural and religious groups to participate so that we can share our struggles, share what we've accomplished, how we've pulled ourselves up out of these struggles, and what is our common human bond and our vision for the future. And so I'm very excited to be part of the Human Relations Commission because we have diverse commissioners who have dynamic experiences, who bring different ideas, who present various initiatives, and who are really powerful leaders who are willing to work together and reach out to others. So through our Human Relations Commission, we promote positive intergroup relationships and we incubate these diverse initiatives. But our goal is to really hand them over to the community, working in concert with the community and with leaders so that we as a society can really work together to pull ourselves up, to face the challenges. There are some real major challenges facing our city, our state, and our nation. And sometimes people go into depression, they want to hibernate, they want to give up, they want to feel like, what can I do? There's just so many horrible things happening. But the other side of the coin is that there are so many people who have been motivated and inspired and who are organizing, who may have not organized before. And sometimes it's through our struggles that we find our strength. It's through our struggles that we reach out to people who we may never have spoken to before. It's through our struggles that we realize our full potential of what we can do as individuals. As individuals, we are powerful. And so never underestimate who you are. You don't have to have a title. We are a celebrity-oriented society. We focus on who's rich, who's famous, and there are many people who give so much importance to these people just because of a title or what they've achieved economically. But it's who we are inside as individuals. It's who we are when you go to bed at night and you think about the people that you care about, the issues that you care about, the community that you care about. That's what gives you the power. And so look inside yourself. Be proud of what you've accomplished throughout your life. Don't ever feel that anyone is more important or more powerful than you, because through other community activists, grassroots community activists who have struggled from the bottom, who were considered the lowest of the low, our civil rights movement throughout the country, those people are the ones who have really created change. And those people are the ones who today are creating change. Not our political leaders, not corporations. It's the grassroots people who are lighting the fire under our political leaders to have the courage to step up, to speak out, to speak truth to power, and to make change. And all of you in this room today have done it before, and all of you have the passion, the love, the compassion for others, and the ability to do what you never thought you could do before in your life. And so dig deep in your heart, dig deep in your soul, and know that you're not alone. Because so many people feel they're alone, that there's nothing that they can do. You are not alone. As a commissioner, I feel that I've been given a voice. I've been given an opportunity to sit on a stage with this wonderful panel of passionate, wonderful people who've done so much for others. But you're the ones that we want to inspire. Because we can't do anything ourselves. It's only when you join with us that then we can go back to our commissions and say, this is what the community needs, this is what the community wants, this is what we as the commission need to do. And then we present our ideas to the city. And it's not just us as individual commissioners saying we want this, but it's with the entire community behind us saying, this is what we all need. And so I look to you as the leaders, not necessarily with a title, although I believe that you're all going to achieve more than you've ever dreamed of, but you are the leaders of the people that you care for. Always think the work that we do is for the people that we care for. It's not for ourselves. When we have a position, it's to move that agenda forward to help others. And so I want to thank you and John Darnell and the Jewish Federation for allowing us to be here to share our experiences with you. But number one, to be a voice for the people, to be a voice for the voiceless, to be able to say, this is just the beginning. There are great things that are coming to our city, state, and nation, and I'm excited to be on this ride with you. It's going to be a wild ride, but it's going to be exciting, it's going to be dynamic, and we've got some wonderful hard work to do, but we're going to have great achievements. And the cycle never ends. Our struggle is forever. When we become complacent, that's, as I say, when the cucarachas come out from under the dark, because now they've been empowered. We got to get those cucarachas back under the woodwork and have the light shine on those who really care about others and what our city, state, and nation is really all about. Thank you so much.
So let's give a round of applause again to our city commissioners. I know we went a little over time, but I think you heard a lot of good stories here and a lot of truth and a lot of passion. And again, remember, city commissioners, they don't get paid, and neither do neighborhood council board members. So they do this stuff without getting paid. They don't get paid a dime. So something to think about. And so thank you again. And our next presentation, we're just going to take about a 1 or 2 minute break because we have to get the PowerPoint ready. So if you'd like to take a quick bathroom break or get some refreshments, we're going to go to a presentation on how to find a city job.
My name is Michael Rose, and I'm with the City of Los Angeles Personnel Department. So I'm going to talk about how to apply with the city and also a few different types of positions with the city. So I have a quick presentation, and then at the end, if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. So getting started, all of our applications are done online. So if you're going to be going to try to apply for any positions with the city, you're going to be starting at the personnel website. So this is what our main page of the personnel website looks like. So this is where you're going to be starting. So I'll click to this next slide. There are a few different places that you can apply with the city, and it depends on what type of position you're looking for. So I'm going to click this. There are 4 arrows. I don't know if we can see with lighting. Okay. Yeah, great. Thank you. But there are 4 different sections here. So once you go onto the personnel website, you're going to go to the Job Center. There's 2 ways to get to the Job Center. You can either click on Look Jobs, or you can go to Job Seeker, and under Job Seeker, there's a Job Center button that you can press on. So once you get to the Job Center, this is what it looks like. There are different sections. So this first one that we're pointing at is positions that are open for anybody. So it doesn't need to be a city employee, and these are civil service positions. So these are regular positions with the city for anybody, whether you're a city employee or not. So this next button, or this next area where you can apply, based on this other red arrow right here, is just for promotional exams. So if you're already a city employee, you're looking for promotional civil service exams, that's where you would go for that. Then we have another position here, executive jobs. That's where you'd go to find executive positions. Those are not civil service positions, and it's not going to be an exhaustive list of executive jobs in the city, but it will include some positions in different departments. And we also have next to that is an exempt job. So that's similar. It's positions that aren't civil service, but they are positions in different departments throughout the city. So you can go there to see any positions that might fit your interests. It's not, again, going to be an exhaustive list, but it's a good place to start. And you'll also see at the bottom there, I don't think we have an arrow for it, but there are volunteer and internships. So those are other opportunities that you can explore as well. All right, so if you're looking for the civil service position, so you click on that first arrow that we had pointed out in the last slide. So you're looking at a civil service position for non-promotional or promotional applicants, really. This is the type of screen you're going to see. So if you look over on the left side of the screen, you see it's a list of different positions with the city. You can search if you have a position in mind that you're going to try to apply for, or you can just scroll through and see if there's anything that catches your eye. So once you find a position that you're interested in and you decide you want to apply or look at the selection process, you can click on the position title, and then you'll see a screen that looks like the screen there on the right. So it brings up what we call an exam bulletin. It's a job bulletin. It has, or a job description. It has the duties, the requirements for the position, and also the examination process. So you'll see what type of exams, whether it's interviews or written tests, you'll have to take as part of the civil service selection process. Once that exam process is complete, you'll be put on an eligible list and rank order based on how you perform on that selection process, and then that list will be provided to user departments who can then use that list for their own selection for a specific position. So you'll see up in the upper right-hand corner of our right-hand screen, there's a green button that says apply. I don't know if you can see it here, but it says apply, so you'd go there and you'd click on apply. If you already have an account with us through Government Jobs, you can just submit or apply to many positions with that same account. If you don't, you can go on and you can create an account, and then you can apply for any positions that you're interested in. All right, so now I'm going to go into some different features that we have with our website. So you might not know exactly what you're interested in. You might not know exactly what positions we have that would fit your interests. So one place to start would be our exam information database. This has positions that are going to be opening for filing in the future. They might not be open right now, but they've been requested by user departments, and we have an open date for them. So you can see and you can start to anticipate what positions that you're interested in might be coming up in the near future. So To get to our exam information database, you go right here under Job Seeker again, and then there's exam information. So once you click on exam information, you'll be taken to a page that looks like this. This is our database. And it essentially has a list of all of the positions that I just mentioned. They may be open or they may be opening in the near future. They have a tentative open date there that you can go ahead and plan around. It is tentative, so it may change, but it gives you an idea of when these exams are going to be coming up. So, next thing, if you see a position and you see now you've found a position that you're interested in, you see that it's going to open in 2 or 3 months, and you know that you're going to want to apply for that, but you're worried that you're not going to necessarily remember that, we have another feature where you can request notifications. So when you go to our website, you can go down here. It's going to be right between our current job openings and our LA City Job Match, which is another feature I'll talk about in a minute. But at this notifications, you can go on, and I'll get to Job Match right now because we're going to go in the next screen is going to be notifications. So LA City Job Match is a fairly new, excuse me, fairly new feature on our website. It's somewhere where you can go on, you can put your educational experience, your interests, and also your work experience. It'll come up with a list of positions you might be qualified for. It's not a guarantee that you'll be qualified for them, but it kind of helps narrow down a list of positions with the city that might be in your interests and might be applicable to your qualifications. So that might make your search a little bit more, might make it a little simpler. And we also have a little bit more information on these sheets that were passed out up at the front. If you didn't get a chance to grab them, I think they still will have a few up at the front, and if still no, then you can come talk to me after and I'll try to get you a copy. But we have that LA City Job Match, but then as far as the notifications go, if you do decide to get a notification, you click on the job notifications, you'll be taken to this screen. It looks very similar to what you'd go to apply, except you're looking at positions that might not be open now, they might not be opening in the near future, but you know you're interested, so you're gonna go in and you're gonna click on the position that you're interested in. And then once you click on that, you'll get a screen like this. It looks, again, very similar to the screen that you saw when you were applying, but that little green button up in the corner doesn't say apply now, it says subscribe. So that you'll click on that, then you'll give us your contact information, and once the position opens, once we're accepting applications, we'll send you an email notice, so then you'll know to come in and apply. You don't have to keep checking back. So that's a helpful feature on our website. So that was a quick overview of just our website, of the different features on our website, and how to apply. So we have our contact information up here. We have a phone number. Once you call that phone number, you'd select the second option, and that would get you in communication with one of our staff members who can help you if you have any trouble with the application process, or if you have any questions. We also have our office. We're at the Personnel Department building, 700 East Temple Street. So we're room 100, so we're the first building in on your left, right inside the lobby. So you can always come down to us in person as well if you have any questions. And our public counter is open Monday through Friday, every day of the week from 7 to 4 for public. So that is the conclusion of the presentation. And if any of you have any questions, I'm happy to take them now.
Set of skills, right, for a job, but you still have this much skills, and then you see another job that might be of interest to you. Can you house more than one resume type, or do you have to apply per job?
Yeah, you'll have to apply per position. You can use it all with the same account, but we'd have to review each application separately.
So if you got several different resumes with the same name on it, even though it's under the same kind of umbrella, you usually want to gear your resume towards the job.
Yeah, so we actually have applications. So you're going to be, yeah. So normally during the civil service process, we won't be reviewing resumes. That may come in later during the certification for a specific position, but not during the front. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, so our website address, it's right up here at the top. It's per.lacity.org. So that's the website that I showed you just now. And then if you go to the Job Center, then that will have all the features that we just discussed. So it'll have LA City Job Match, the job notifications, and also everywhere to apply. But if you do have any questions, if you go to this website and you have trouble navigating it, we do have our contact information on the back of this sheet as well, on the bottom. Yeah, absolutely. And if they have any questions, I encourage them to call this number and select the second option because they can discuss it with our staff. Yeah. Yes. So civil service examination process, it'll vary depending on the exam. So it could be a written test, it could be an interview, it could be a combination. There are performance tests as well. Any exam process is going to be on that job bulletin. So when you apply, you'll see what kind of tests you're going to have to take to be put on the eligible list. And you'll also get an idea of when those tests are going to be. So the first test date will normally be advertised on the bulletin if it's scheduled yet. Well, recently we've started doing anytime, anywhere testing for multiple choice tests, so that's going to be online. You have an option normally to come in and take it on site, which is a site close to the personnel department, but normally you'll have that option for multiple choice tests and advisory essays to take it online, so you can take it in a laptop. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Sometimes you need to have a certain type of education, not specific education, but college degree, for example. But if you actually have work experience, do you take that into consideration as well, or if you don't have the college, you just go into the roundabout?
Well, it all depends on the requirements for that specific position. We review our applications based on those requirements. So if you don't meet them, unless there's a substitution clause listed on the bulletin, we wouldn't consider a substitution that's not advertised. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, please. So on that bulletin, again, like that bulletin where you're applying, that's going to have all of the information that you're going to want. But when you go down to the examination process, they'll have the different tests. So they'll have the multiple choice tests and a general overview of the competencies. So what they're going to be testing for. It'll be vague. There normally won't be a study guide or anything like that. No, but it'll normally give you an idea of the topics. So it could be civil service rules or city charter or something like that that you could be tested on. So you might want to focus on that in your studying. Yes. So volunteer and internships are going to be in that first slide, so you're there, and that's going to be mostly through the user department for those positions. That's not the whole civil service process, so that's going to vary a little bit more depending on the hiring department.
Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you.
And just so everyone knows too, you know, in the next 5 years, approximately 50% of the city's workforce will be eligible to retire. So, you know, there's going to be a lot of vacancies. There's certain positions that are really common, certain positions that aren't. But, you know, if you're really interested, it is kind of a process to navigate, and it takes a long time to learn. So I would suggest you really read the website and read about what civil service means, because those are 99% of the positions. I think by by law, the city charter says that only 1% of the positions can be exempt. I know he didn't have a chance to go over that too much in depth, but for example, if you work for a city council member, you're not civil service. You're actually just interviewed, you're appointed to the position, and there are very few of those positions. Most of them are civil service, so you do have to take a test. And so thank you again, Michael, for coming out. So thanks again, everyone, for staying a little bit late. The meat of this event usually every year is the city commissioners that come. And so, you know, again, after this event in the next couple of days or possibly next week, I'm going to send all the information out to you. So if you RSVP'd, I have your email. If you did not, please make sure we have your email on our sign-in sheet in the back with your name. And we're going to send you the links to, you know, for example, how to get a city job, the different, you know, links to the commissions that our panelists run and things like that. because we want to make sure you had this information, because I'm sure nobody memorized all of what they heard tonight, and there's a lot more to read, so we want to make sure you have all of that. So the next and final presentation is about how to run for higher office. Now, we're not going to talk about how to run for Congress. This is local stuff, and unfortunately, the city clerk was not able to be here tonight. But we're basically going to go through, and there's a pamphlet that basically has the basics on here that was in your packet that we handed out with the drawstring bags. And there's a lot more online. And let's see. And as some of you know, there are 2 special elections coming up. Just as a side note, one for the school district for Board District 5, and the primary election is March 5th, and the general election is May 14th, and then Council District 12. The primary election is June 4th, and if there's a runoff, then the general election would be August 13th. Those are special elections. Normally, the city does their elections in March and May. The city council actually has staggered terms. So, for example, the odd number districts, 1, 3, 5, 7, all the way to 15, run 1 year, and then 2 years later, you have the even number districts. Now, they're still going to do that, although the year when they happen now has changed. They used to be in between when you had federal/state elections happening. Now they're the city council and basically a lot communities throughout the city. That's been a big discussion the last few years, and a couple years ago that was actually changed. So that actually will change. So starting next year, in November 2020, you're actually going to have city council elections, during that time. So the goal, at least, at the time, was to try to increase voter turnout. City council elections, even in not special elections like we have this year, in regular number years, had probably the lowest turnout of any elections almost. And so, but there are, pros and cons. People had mentioned about, moving them versus not moving them. Maybe it makes them less grassroots, gets more political because you're aligned with parties. There's a lot of conversation about that. But do know that, and on this pamphlet, it shows that, the following office seats are up for elections on the years listed. So you have the council districts, 2020, 22, 24, 26, 28, as the years go on. And so as far as locally, there's the city council, the mayor, the city attorney, city controller, and LAUSD board members. These are the local offices that basically the city clerk, basically used to look after. It's all going to actually switch to the county running this, with also voting centers coming out next year too, which you'll actually be able to register same day, and vote. So we hope that there are not going to be thousands of them everywhere, but there's going to be, I think, about a dozen around the county. And still we'll have some, polling places, but these voting centers will make it a lot easier for folks to vote as well. So to be a candidate, you obviously have to be 18 years old. You have to live within the city of Los Angeles. And there's also some rules with at least 30 days prior to the day to file for candidacy. You must reside within the city of Los Angeles. So that includes, that's for all the seats that I've listed. And the city council used to have 2 4-year terms. Now it's 3 4-year terms. About 15 years ago, that was changed. But the mayor, city attorney, and city controller, they get 2 4-year terms. So, for example, Mayor Garcetti, when his reelection, this is his last term. He has a couple more years, and then he's termed out. And then so we'll have we won't have an incumbent on the next election for mayor, for example. Councilman Koretz, who also came here tonight, is in his last term. He's in his 3rd term. It was mentioned in the flyer here. So, the next election for this district, the 5th council district, will be an open seat. There won't be an incumbent. And to become a candidate, if you're actually going to run for office, there's a lot of different paperwork you have to do. You have to file fundraising paperwork with the City Ethics Commission. They have to basically check, to make sure you're a resident, and a few other things. Officially declare your intention to become a candidate. You actually have to do that, just like for neighborhood council elections. You have to actually register. Technically someone can write you in, but you're not going to win that way, right? So you want to make sure you register, you get on the ballot, you do a lot of paperwork, there's a lot of paperwork to do, but you have to do it. And on the flyer, it actually, there's a graph on the back, and it actually shows you with bubbles sort of a timeline of what to do. So for example, about 2 years ahead of time, you want to contact the city's ethics commission for campaign finance rules and guidelines, because there's a lot of guidelines. For example, raising money. The max you can raise is $700. So but you can do it twice. So before the primary election, you can raise $700, and then if you go into a runoff, because maybe you didn't win the majority of the vote and there's a runoff, you can raise another $700 per person. And so it's different than maybe the state legislature, which I think the limit is $4,500, or the presidential elections and things like that. There's different limits and different rules, but the city of Los Angeles, not any other city, not the county, but the city of LA, for example, you want to run for city council, it's a $700 limit. And there's been talk over the years to maybe slightly raise that because of inflation or different things, right? But that's what it is. So as far as money, and any interested party should contact the city clerk's election division to be included in notices of important events, emails, and press releases regarding candidate filing. There's a lot of maybe some rules change, or maybe there's something coming up that you need to be aware of as far as some little thing. I mean, the slightest mistake can actually end your candidacy, and you're not on the ballot, and then therefore your campaign's over. And so one really important aspect to take note is you have to gather signatures of registered voters in the district that you're running for. Or if you're running for mayor, it can be throughout the city of Los Angeles, but these people have to live and be registered in the city or in the district that you're running for. And there's two ways to do that. First one is you can get 500 signatures and you can pay a $300 fee, or the second way is to get $1,000 signatures, and I believe the fee is waived. But you have to get twice the amount. But they have to be, for example, say you're going to run for Council District 5. Right? Councilman Kretz termed out a few years from now, there's an election. You want to not pay the $300, you want to save some money, you want to get 1,000 signatures. I believe you only have about a month to do it. And so you have to get signatures, though. People sign their name, their address, and it goes on there. It takes a team of people, and it takes a while to get it. And sometimes people pre-plan before the actual date starts, because you can't start, a year ahead of time. They give you a certain window when you can go and pick up the official petition. You can't just print them out from home either. You actually have to pick them up from the city clerk's office, and they don't give you a stack of 1,000. They only give you a certain amount, so make sure you don't make any errors and things like that. But that's probably one of the most important things, because you can't get on the ballot if you don't get the signatures. So that's a really important aspect to it. And yeah, you have a question? Only your council district. Yeah, from the residents who are registered to vote in your council district. So you can live in the council district, but if you're not registered to vote, then it actually won't count. So, and I think it takes a few election cycles of someone not voting to actually be kicked off the rolls. So, but again, so when you go get a signature, for example, you want to ask somebody, are you registered to vote? So you go, sure, I'm registered to vote. I'm going to go wait at the farmer's market down the street from here, right? I'm going to just have a table. I'm going to post up. Well, probably half of the people there that turn out don't even live in the city, maybe. So they say, sure, I live in LA, because a lot of people think of LA as just this area, whatever. They might live in West Hollywood. That's a different city, right? It's not the 5th Council District. It's not the city of LA. So these very important details are key. And if you yourself as a candidate don't have time to go through it, it's advisable to hire somebody to help you with that, because a lot of this is very technical. And so you might be, trying to raise money or, meet voters or do different things. So it's good to have a team behind you that can help you with this technical stuff, because it can be complex. And if you've never done it before, it can kind of be overwhelming. And we also encourage folks, before they run for office, you don't have to necessarily do this, but be on a neighborhood council. And the reason why we say that is sort of like a farm system in baseball, right? You're in AA, AAA baseball. You learn, you move up, you learn the different rules about what it's like to be, on a quasi-legislative body like that, where you have to deal with the Brown Act, you have to deal with conflict of interest issues, you have to deal with managing public funds, you have to deal with a lot of the same issues they deal with. And obviously, you're not going to have authority, you're not going to make laws, but if you're going to run for office and you're able to speak on issues, you're able to say, yes, I know a lot of these rules and these technical things, and you might even find out you not want to run for city council, who knows, but you might say, it's too much work. I don't want to work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, which most of them do, It's really what it takes to be a good council member. I work for one, and it takes a lot of work. And so, our advice is to, make sure you know the technical stuff of how to run for office. We could go into the philosophical things about, make sure you're doing it for the right reasons, stuff like that, and that's good, and that's, valid, but the city clerk deals with the actual paperwork and the rules, and you have to understand that, because it's not just, say, for example, if you've ever run for neighborhood council, it's fairly simple compared to this. You pretty much, maybe if you had to provide documents, you provide a photo ID, and then maybe you provide the lease of the apartment you live in. And you say, you know what, I live in the area. Okay, done. You're qualified to run for neighborhood council. You only need a couple hundred votes, right, to maybe win for most neighborhood councils. This is a lot different. So I'm sorry, did you have another question? Or, okay. Well, basically, the bottom line is the signatures. Well, if you're running for mayor, for example, it could be anyone who's registered to vote in the city. But if you're running for city council, it has to be in the district. So the bottom line is the signatures have to be from the people you're representing. So whether it's a citywide office or not. And other things too, when you run for office, remember, there's also people that vote by mail. And those become available to people about maybe 30, 40 days approximately before the election. So when it actually comes to crunch time, when the people are going to cast their ballot, it's not always on election day, right? It's weeks ahead of time. And so make sure if you're running, maybe 5 weeks or so before the election, a lot of folks are going to actually mail in their ballot. They're not going to go at the polls. So, it's important to understand the different dynamics, and you don't necessarily need to hire the best person. In my opinion, you don't necessarily need to hire the best person in the world to be your consultant and do all this stuff. Just understand the rules. And the most important thing besides the rules is get out there and talk to people face to face. When you meet somebody and you talk to somebody, that is the most effective thing in the world. You have to have your Facebook page, right? You have to have certain things. You have to maybe mail out some flyers. Maybe there's a bunch of boxes you got to check to sort of do certain things, because everyone else is going to be doing it, and you don't want to be left behind with certain things, right? Because you want to hit them all from all angles. But when you talk to people face to face and they get to know you, although council districts are huge, about a quarter of a million people live in each one, about 250,000 people. So you're not necessarily going to be able to walk door to door, on every door, right? But the more you're out there and the more you're knowledgeable, and like the council member said before, and the commissioner said, do something where you're running. People can see if you've actually, or if you're for real or not, right? They can see if you're actually genuinely doing this to help, or if maybe there's some other reason you're doing it, And so, having, myself work for a council member and knowing other people that, have as well, there's a lot of different things that go with campaigning. Unfortunately, there's things that aren't good in campaigns, but sometimes it's the simplest thing that can just ruin your campaign by not just knowing some of the technical information. If you don't get enough signatures, or you went, oops, I got 490 instead of 500, you're not going to be on the ballot. Even though you got 800 signed on a paper, only 490 were valid. And you worked really hard. And you thought, yeah, you know what, I got people to go, and every single one of them is registered to vote, but they weren't all necessarily in your district. So it's really important to understand that. Does anybody else have any other questions about how to run for higher office, or has anybody here ever worked on a campaign? But any kind of campaign, volunteered, made calls, walked, door knocked, gave money, even if it was $10, right? Okay, so most people here are pretty interested, right? Because obviously, when someone's elected, they have power, and you could be that person. And I'm not saying that as a cliche. I mean, it's serious. You can do that. And I think right now we see a lot of things changing. A lot more people are activated. As the commissioner said, there's a lot more people that never organized before, never got involved. I mean, growing up myself when I was 18, 19 years old, I didn't really know what a city council member was. I was the first person in my family to graduate from college. I thought you had to be rich and whatever and buy your way into office. That's not necessarily true. And having, gone through school and learned a lot of this stuff, and coming from the background that I have, it's not an impossible thing, and I think you're seeing a lot of the barriers sort of organically right now breaking down, and some of the old ways are sort of, changing about, what people think has to be, right? And so for some people, that makes it, because you maybe think like that, maybe makes it scary for you to want to run or try it, you know? And if you lose, so what? You know, all you were doing was trying to run to make a difference to help where you live. That's all you were doing. You know, you weren't trying to rip somebody off, you know? So I encourage you to run, you know, or not, or help somebody that maybe you think is a really good candidate, they can do a lot of good, help them, because people need people to help them as well to get into office. They can't do it by themselves. Like the city commissioner said, even their job, right? They can't do it by themselves. They need people to work with them and do the work in the communities, right? The elected officials are the people that sort of, you know, oversee everything and try to, in the end, make a vote. But, you know, they need people to work with them. And so, you know, it really does come from the ground up, and especially when we have a neighborhood council system of 1,800 board members, you know, sort of trained in a way with this. You know, in a lot of ways, they're sort of ready to run for office, and more neighborhood council board members have actually made it to office. Councilman David Rue is actually a council member who was a board member on the Wilshire Center Koreatown Neighborhood Council. You know, Ron Galperin was a neighborhood council board member. He's also on the Budget Advocates, which is an alliance that tries to help improve city services. And so we leave with this information, and again, we're going to email everyone. You know, the information about how to run for higher office, how to get a city job, the links to the commissions that the commissioners sit on, and you know, when we send that out, if you have any questions, let us know. And again, sorry we went a little over late, but a lot of this information sometimes, you know, there's a lot to do in a couple hours, and so thanks for your patience, and we wish you the best.